Welcome to the Lewis and Clark Visitor Center. I'm Doug Friedli. I have the pleasure of hanging around up here almost every day. Here you can step back into time and look and see what the Missouri River Basin would have looked like about 200 years ago when Lewis and Clark came upstream. Here you see the snags in the river, you see the sandbars, and you'll see on the hills there are very few trees. In fact, Clark talked about the boundless prairie that he saw in his journals on the day that they camped here in the Nebraska City area. There were no trees up on the prairie. So that's what our center talks about, is the things that they saw and experienced, the plants and animals and the birds and everything else that they found as they came up the river in 1804. One of the new animals that Lewis and Clark encountered was a grizzly bear. They'd been told by the Native Americans, look out for the big bears. Well, Lewis and Clark said, well, obviously they just have bow and arrows and inferior guns. We're not really intimidated by bears. They had no idea the size of a grizzly bear, 3 or 4 times bigger than any black bear. And these critters, once you shoot them, keep coming right after you. And so Lewis in the end said, I'd rather fight 2 Native Americans than 1 bear. Actually, he said Indians. So they had a new respect for the grizzly bears of the West. Another one of the animals that Lewis and Clark discovered was a bison. You know, here we have a full-sized bison, and in the background they described the hundreds of thousands of buffalo that they saw on the horizon. So this is an amazing first-hand encounter of a full-sized bison. We also have in this display prairie dogs, and of course we have the native grasses. We've got a rattlesnake in here and some prairie chickens. So you can see the types of things that Lewis and Clark found. This was their grocery store. This is where they went to the meat market to feed the 44 hungry men every night, is when they could find bison. They loved that, and it was a great thing for them to be able to discover and also survive as they came through the West. In this part of the museum, we show you the dog, the faithful dog named Seaman that Lewis purchased in Philadelphia. So this dog, I like to say, went from coast to coast. So he went from the East Coast and went with Captain Lewis all the way across the continent to the Pacific Ocean. So probably the first dog to ever go across the continent, and walked all the way. He also swam. He was a faithful sidekick of the captain, saved his life on more than one occasion, got in between a grizzly bear and Lewis and saved his life. So this dog was a very valuable part of the expedition, and all the men loved him and cared for him very much. They really enjoyed Seaman. So here we are. We just saw the boat inside, the white pirogue, and here we have a model of the keel boat, or the barge. There were 3 boats that Lewis and Clark brought upstream. These boats were made actually for the IMAX movie, but they're replicas as close as we can tell to the size and the construction methods of the original boats that would have been built in the early 1800s. This is a great teaching tool for us. Students, adults can climb on board. It's all handicapped accessible. And you can get a feel for what it would have been like to be on the river 200 years ago, pushing these huge craft upstream. Had to be a monumental task every day for the men as they used the oars, the poles, the ropes, just pushing and pulling and mastering this thing upstream every day, around the sandbars, around the snags, and all the other things they had to encounter as they went upstream up the Missouri River. Over here you'll see the outdoor view of our building. We have a 3-story building. It was designed by the National Park Service. We're very proud of its construction. It's now 14 years old, but we try to keep it in good shape at all times. In addition, if you come to our center, we have trails outside. So there's 2.5 miles of trails that are open all the time, 24/7. Our hours in the building are 9 in the morning till 6 in the evening. But during the off hours, you're welcome to come up and explore outside like Lewis and Clark would have done. We're located just across the river near the Missouri River Bridge in Nebraska City. You can find us on our website, lewisandclarkvisitorcenter.org. You can also check us out on Facebook. Look at our upcoming events and check out the photos and all the things that people discover as they come to our beautiful Lewis and Clark Visitor Center.